It's finally here, a sequel to Fusion. This is a new Metroid game in general, that's exciting. Does Metroid Dread live up to the name? This new Metroid title is not full of dread whatsoever. This one's more excitement and hype, enthusiasm. This has a lot of what Metroid is very known for. But they're able to do a little bit more. Using the Nintendo Switch as a platform, there's new capabilities that they can bring to Metroid, and I think it works out really well in this case. The graphics look incredible, especially when you consider Metroid Fusion was on the Game Boy Advance, and that was actually back in 2002. So it's about 19 years later, and the fans have been clamoring. This game brings about a whole new breath of fresh air into the kind of aging Metroid landscape. But again, I think this one hit the mark. The story is told in more of a cinematic way. They didn't go very far in the way that Metroid Other M did, or how Federation Force kind of changed up the way they tell the story. This is heavily cinematic. You enter a room, it shows you what's going on, you're met with this beautiful vista in the background often, and it's up to you to kind of put together what's going on between those moments. The story takes a couple little twists, a couple turns here and there, but it is very engaging, and that's really important for a game like this. You have to be motivated to explore this world. Keep pushing on. Dread has just about everything that you could come to expect out of it from a 2D Metroid title. It has everything you're used to. The exploration, the world kind of map to explore. You, of course, lose your superpowers right at the beginning of the game. As is tradition, you must slowly unlock your different beam cannon, different missiles, different suit upgrades to be able to explore the map once, twice, thrice over, finding new paths, new shortcuts, and a whole lot of collectibles that make you stronger. These are all staples in the other Metroid games, and it is really well felt in this one. There's a whole lot of little twists and turns to different rooms that you go through. There's a lot of value to re-explore areas with new powers, and that keeps you doing a lot of things that maybe aren't necessary to the main story. Adding replayability, adding some player agency that you can go around this map however you choose, that is a huge improvement in my opinion. Again, the action is just about to be expected. You have the arm cannon, you have missiles, you get different types of arm cannon upgrades and missile upgrades that help you flourish over enemies that were once very difficult. And when you get through those enemies, you're met with a lot of boss fights. And that is something that is definitely familiar from Metroids of old. Even some of the characters come back. There's Kraid as a boss fight, he's really interesting, but there's also a lot of new creatures and kind of abominations to fight along the way. It's my opinion that Samus is not a bounty hunter. Samus is more of an exterminator, and that's exactly why you're on this planet, what your mission is. You are no longer hunting Metroids, you've crushed them out of existence, or so it seems so far, but there is this kind of Weapon X, this kind of fusion-centric alien life form that can upgrade itself based on the DNA it comes across. These things were a scourge across the galaxy. The Chozo fought many wars against them, against other creatures that would feed them, and this self-replicating force was, you thought, exterminated in Metroid Fusion. One of these X-fusion type monsters gets away to this planet somehow, and that is where Samus comes in. You are set off to finish the job that you started. There are these robots, they're EMMI, called Emmy for short. They have been dispatched to this planet to do just the same job as you, exterminate this scourge. But somewhere along the line they've lost their way and now they present as an enemy. And that is really intense. For Samus to come across an enemy that actually is a good adversary, that's very rare. And these things offer quite a fight. You actually end up spending some time avoiding the fight, which is definitely new to Metroid. You enter these kind of areas that Emmy has locked down. You can fight it if you have the means. That's very story-centric. But most of your time you're avoiding that until you can get the equipment you need to fight. And that gives a different feeling of kind of helplessness that is very unfamiliar, but a good improvement. You are sometimes faced with these bosses that you can't really damage, not obviously at least. You have a parry kind of maneuver, a melee counter that you can do that opens up certain enemies to damage. You, of course, have your rockets, your charge beam. You have to be a little more creative than in past titles when it comes to how to damage these things. Sometimes the boss fights last quite long, and they can be very challenging, which is going to push some people away, but again, as a fan, long time of the series, I want some challenge. I think I've just about hit the end of what I can talk about without spoiling anything or giving anything away. I don't want to do that for this title. This means a lot to a lot of people, and to those, I would say I absolutely recommend this one. If you're a fan of Metroid, Castlevania, even Metroid Prime, some of the games that have come further since then, Celeste, and that, you are absolutely going to want this game. Something that's going to be familiar to other Metroid fans is the music. The music in this game absolutely smashes targets. It is perfect to accompany you while you're exploring in the combat scenarios. There's a lot of musical tracks that are going to be familiar. I've certainly heard them before. And it is a really, really nice touch in this game. I'm a big fan of audio tracks that really hit their mark, and this one was no disappointment whatsoever. If I may recap, there's a lot of familiar things returning in Metroid Dread. It is all of the right mix of exploration, action, upgrading your suit as you're used to, plus pushing into this new map, new story, many boss fights, and a whole lot of nostalgia. I absolutely loved this title. The music is right there, slamming the entire way, and it looks beautiful on the Switch. I'm there with a 9. The newest entry in the highly respected series, Metroid Dread does not disappoint. A delicate balance of familiar combat, exploration, and boss battles, with daring iteration, new concepts, and items. Is Samus really a bounty hunter?